Good morning, the viewers of Politically Incorrect Podcast. Mashiane coming you from Digital Photography Studios as usual. I've got a guest, he's on call now. We've got Toning Dinala, a very vibrant a young man with unorthodox views as always. We spoke and we lamented the fact that the politics of our country needs to be reorganized, as it were. And now he's back, the government of national unity, I don't know what he calls it himself. He will tell us what are the paining points that come from that. Intoning, my brother, how are you?
Sharp, my brother, yourself?
Grand, man, grand. Thanks for joining us again to discuss this political mess that we found the country in. I saw something saying, we are the only country that has fought colonialism, borrowed time away from it, and we direct ourselves back to be colonized. How true is that mean?
It does look like that, man, because we are handing power right back to the people who tortured us, raped us, pillaged, removed us from our land, and treated us horribly, you know. So it's very strange that we find ourselves in this situation again.
Yeah, no, it's very sad. President Ramaphosa, as usual, he could not be strong enough to, should I say, fight off the right-wing Cape Town led boys. But Banyana Sufi has managed to do that. Let's talk about the Ramaphosa's cabinet. What are your thoughts and what are your paining moments about it?
I think my thoughts, number one, are that it is obviously ballooned to be as big as it is, and it's very unnecessary. I'm surprised that some people came back. For me, you know, Korongwana is one of those people that I really don't like personally. I don't like the Home Affairs guy. I don't like the fact that they put in John Steenhuisen from the DA in agriculture. For me, agriculture is a very sensitive issue because agriculture is where food is grown. And, you know, there are rumors that he has close proximity to people like Bill Gates, who wants to push the GMO agenda in South Africa or in Africa. So to me, those are some of the areas. Of course, there are many others, but these are the few that I look at and I'm like, I can't.
Yeah, no, it's very scary. You know, so to me, the ministries that affected me and got me thinking is John Steenhuisen, and the world now is crying because I'm saying this at the backdrop of the ignorance, because I'm not an agrarian scientist in any way, but the world has been lamenting the fact that seeds, we can't grow seeds. I mean, it's very difficult to get seeds, and people don't understand how difficult it is. And we give someone who aligns with Western powers the right to form policy or to change policy in that area. It's very scary for me. So John Steenhuisen is a problem for me. In education, it's very scary for me. And people must not get us confused. They must not get this twisted, because people think whenever we want this, we are thinking about SARTU. No, there are much bigger issues than people who will take on SARTU, who will not care what SARTU says. Their conferences will not be. We're not worried about that. We're worried about long-term policies that might change. For example, I was involved. I went to public hearings for the Bella Bill, and I had lots of lies peddled by Action SA at some point, and Patriotic Alliance at some point, and other white-leaning parties lying about the Bella Bill. And now you've taken a party that did not like the Bella Bill to go and work in that sector that you wanted. It got me very worried. So for me, I just want to talk about those few, and I want you to expand PAC having been given issues, an opportunity to go and work on our land. and what you think about that. So those are mine, but I want to give it to you to unpack.
Right. Land reform and rural development, is that him, Zwaneli?
Yes. The president of PAC.
Yeah, look, I don't really know how much power and influence the PAC is going to have in this area, particularly because nobody wants land returned, it seems, as far as the ANC and the DA are concerned. So I wonder how much room they're going to have to actually maneuver and make differences in this area. My fear is they could just be given this portfolio just to be sabotaged, so that ultimately they may fail. And then as they fail, they can then have people point fingers at them and say, hey, listen, you failed in this area, so particularly maybe this thing your land, you guys should just give it up and forget about it, because clearly, you're not able to actually, do the type of impact that you thought you could or that you really want to. So maybe you should leave the issue of land alone. For me, I think it's a bad thing for PAC, simply because they just might not be able to do what they have been known to do, like what they have been formulated to do. So it might just be a setup in my view. And when I was looking at education, I look at the lady, just yesterday I was on Twitter. I see a video of the lady talking about Red Bull and and I'm thinking, wow, what an example of somebody to hate education, isn't it? Educating people on how to take alcohol. And I thought to myself, this is a disaster. This person has no moral integrity to be in this position. Who's going to look up to her? Like who? The kids are probably going to make videos doing the same thing she's doing. So I don't think that's a good appointment.
Okay, so people would say in terms of the real mechanics, you are being unfair. You are criticizing her on a social life and not her work. What is your response for that?
The truth of the matter is, these days when we look for jobs, they go onto our social media platforms and they see how we conduct ourselves. Because the company has an image to protect, and if we carry ourselves in a way that will eventually damage the image of the company that we are seeking to be employed at, then that company has every right to say, no, this person is not the right person for this job because of how they treat themselves outside of work. So in and outside of work, how we conduct ourselves is very important. Therefore, she too needs to be judged based on her own personal choices and how she handles herself outside of work. And judging by the way I thing, I don't think she carries the image of somebody who would represent education well and give it the type of image, or maybe I could say respect, that the education department requires.
I want to take you back to PAC. And do you think it was desperation to take a ministry to have something in their pockets, because they have not done anything since 1994 to participate in this government? That's number one. Number two, I'm asking whether the backdrop of the EFF also have taken that stance in the past to say, no, we're not going to participate in this because we won't be able to implement things that we want because we'll be a minority in cabinet and but now they've changed the stance to say, no guys, it's hungry outside, we want in now. And of course we know they didn't go in. Even at the risk of being sabotaged, they now started wanting in. And I think maybe to their credit, PAC wants to do that as well. Do you not think?
I think, first of all, yes, the PAC might not have been doing anything since the 90s. But that's largely because it's been marginalized by the powers that be. And at this point, decision made by Jeremy could be because they're like, you know what, guys, we've been at this thing for some time. We've been in opposition. It's not been helping us. At least this time we have the opportunity to enter government. Let's just enter and see what we can do from there. I think perhaps that could be their perspective in terms of accepting this position. I just don't think it gives them any position of power. It was wise for the EFF to the EFF, even though they tried to enter, but they wanted to enter under their conditions, which is something that they really stood up on, their own principles and values, which is the reason why they're still not in it today is because they stood on their own values and principles. So regardless of how we may see them or view them, they still stood on what they believed, and they refused to enter as long as the conditions were not favorable to them, or at least favorable to the nation, because I think the policies they seek to implement are what the people are actually looking for. As an individual, I can tell you that I am looking for an organization that would say, yes, let's do the state bank thing so that we can start talking about empowering small business owners. So I fully understand the EFF for making the decisions that they made, but also for why they are not part of this so-called GNU, which is really just a coalition government between the ANC and the DA. So I think it's good that the EFF did not partake in this nonsense. It's bound to fall apart simply because there are racial lines here. You know, black people and white people, we want to try and work together. You know, we try and be like, yeah, maybe we can work together. Let's put the thing we passed behind us and move forward and build our nation. But you know, there will always be racial differences. Okay, there will always be racial differences, and that is something we can do nothing about. And they exist in every workplace, they exist in every office you enter, in every shop you enter, everywhere you go, where there's black and white people, in every restaurant. Just by going into a restaurant and sitting there and being, you can already tell that this environment is not necessarily conducive, or, you know, both of us don't really feel comfortable here. We are all just tolerant of one another. So I think at some point, this whole department and all of this GNU thing is going to fall apart. It's just a matter of time before racism surfaces and issues arise between the so-called marriage. So I understand the PAC, but I also understand the EFF. But I think it's a bit desperate of the PAC simply because they should stand on values. They must remember why they were formulated. They must not now suddenly start being power hungry and start thinking from their stomachs. I can understand that politics, you know, you need funding and whatnot, but it's better to be respected for standing on values than selling out just to get a piece of money.
Ish. Yeah, now that's what I said. Okay. Panyaza stood his ground, and people are saying him as the leader in Gauteng who wants to protect unaliving Chris Hani again. He will suffer for what he has done. And the mainstream media, the mainstream media started with their polls showing that the GNU actually has more support than what we think. And people are saying, even those inside the Government of National Unity are going to be taken down one by one by institutions. They're going to SARS them, they're going to NPA them, they are going to NPA them, and what is this, public protector them, and clean and push them out of government. What's your thought about that? Started from Panyaza Lesufi himself, because they already started allegations. That school that he built in the East Rand, that was waterlogged.
Yeah, don't kill Chris Hani again.
Yes.
I think that was very smart of him to do, because, you know, I think particularly those who joined the ANC with the intention of liberating us economically, at least, the intention was that let's do the socialist thing, you know, let's nationalize, let's actually get to the point where the economy is no longer in the hands of just a few, but actually it's shared evenly amongst the people of this nation. Lesufi is standing on those values. Of those who infiltrated the ANC are the ones who are saying all this GNU nonsense that really doesn't mean anything except that there's a new marriage between the ANC and the DA, which was facilitated by Ramaphosa since 2018. We know that. Since 2017, when they started giving him money, really. But truth be told, Panyaza is standing on values and principles that the ANC, the true ANC, stands for, not this fake one of Ramaphosa and this Fiki Limbalula guy. He is right. He is absolutely right to say no. We must have a government that's going to work for our people as African people. We know our history. We know the people. We know what they did to us. We know that they killed the leaders who wanted to transform this economy, and we still are on that agenda, and therefore they must not try and kill us again, because the agenda still continues. Basically, that's the message is sending to everybody, that their agenda to liberate South Africa economically is still continuing. So Panyaza is speaking for those ANC comrades who wish had the same public platform to do what he's doing, because there are many ANC comrades who are not happy with the fact that now they have to tolerate racists just because they have to follow this thing called democratic centralism, which is really nonsense. If you disagree, you disagree. I tell you, this will eventually lead to the split of the ANC. If they do start persecuting those who are having contrary opinion to the fake GNU, then what we will begin to observe is the ANC beginning to split, which will start giving power to the EFF and honestly, more powerfully, to the MK. And which means, and I hope that this MK case continues and they expose the rigging allegations, because we need the system to be exposed so that people can understand why it must change in the future, why we need to stop voting. People must be appointed, and must be appointed by the kings, so that we know that this person is representing the values of the people, and that they will not be bought. But right now, this thing called elections really does not work for us as Africans. It has not transformed our economy as we thought it would. In fact, it is clear to see that it can be bought specifically by the Oppenheimers. So therefore, we need such to happen, so that when people finally split away from this fake GNU, we have a united approach towards how we're going to govern this country going forward, which must be Africanized. So Lesotho is right on point, and whatever happens to him will be vindicated by the millions and millions of ANC supporters who are against this marriage with the DA.
What you just said there is very scary. So you would want to replace a democratic state with a traditional authority of kings and queens, and is that what they're talking about when they are decolonizing the Roman Dutch law back into African culture? Is that what you understand?
My vision is that, yes. President Zuma has been saying it over and over, that we need to be led by kings. Politicians must be sent by kings to go and implement the vision of how the kings want this land to be governed. It makes absolute sense, because why? The kings are living right here with us in our land. They are affected by the same issues with us. They are not some elite group of people that are living in Stellenbosch pulling all the strings from everybody. They are right here with us, and they are our cousins, our relatives. We are their families. So these kings and queens are our people. Their mandate would be to make sure that indeed this wealth of this nation is shared evenly among the people. So yes, I would imagine that that's what the MK wants. Kings leading, just like in other European countries. You know, in other European countries, such as, I would think, where does that guy come from? I'm forgetting the name of the country. But they are ruled by kings. They have kingdoms. Even England itself, they are ruled by kings. So why do we not? Why did they come here and change our system and impose some political system that can be defrauded and cheated and manipulated? This system does not work. It can never work because it can be manipulated. We need a system that is proof-free from manipulation and control, especially from those who have money. We want a system that's going to be able to work for the layman who doesn't have anything. Just like I would imagine that perhaps Muammar Gaddafi could have established a system like that would make it possible that even if they were to remove him, the system remains, so that the next leader will be able to implement exactly what the people want. But the problem with having it as a democratic situation is that once the leader is removed, then the whole thing has the potential of collapsing. But if kingdoms are running it, it can never be collapsed as long as the people who are running it are the kings.
You are right on point when you speak about succession planning, because with politicians there's no amount of succession planning, and they would even deviate. I gave a lot of examples about policy conferences where they declare that nationalize the Reserve Bank, and Cyril Ramaphosa just goes there and totally ignores that resolution. You understand? and if it were kings, and that will be easy. But then, of course, people will tell us the challenges that comes with it, well, it's all noble and stuff, but have we left it way too late? For example, in South Africa, when they came, we had, I don't want to say few kings, we had people who were represented, everyone felt like they were represented. And then there came commissions, they told Ntoning, you can't be a king because the Gampepe Commission, the what Commission said this, and people and are now out of sorts. So I just want to ask you, should and how should this be implemented? You know, I love the way the MK puts things, even if it's not practical now. They are not afraid to say, because it's not practical, it's not doable now. It doesn't mean we must not suggest it and try it. And this is what I love about the MK. They are pushing all envelopes to be possible. Wow. So I want to understand, how are you going to dismantle this? And don't get me wrong, I'm saying it at the backdrop of monopoly capital is so strong that every time capitalism will protect democracy, because this is their eating model. Capitalism can't eat if there's no democracy. You understand? So just unpack it. If you think, how can they do this?
Look, because we have small kings or chiefs and kings, I think we're going to have a long debate about how we are going to govern, because I get it, this has never been done before. Remember, in the past, a king would govern only his area. But now, when we talk about kings governing the country as a whole, then that could be an interesting conversation. But it means that there can be dialogue among kings, among the people, as to how we are going to do so. So I would think that at the right time, we're going to start engaging on how this whole landscape is going to be laid out. At this particular moment, myself, I cannot specifically tell you how it should work. But I do know that a kingdom is much more stable and it's much more easy to succeed, because when you don't implement, you're taken out. When you don't implement, you're taken out. It's the will of the kings, it's the will of the people. So I think at the right time, those conversations can be had, and I look forward to participating myself. Individually, I look at my own king here at home. You know, some may say chief, but that's okay. And I see how much power has been stripped away from him. And I look at how the system is constantly imposing itself on us, the people, and many of the things that they're imposing us are not what we want as the people. So therefore, I wish that kings can be empowered so that the power can come back to we, the people, and not some select few at some political debate or some political group who decide the destiny of many of us. And even if the many say, look, this is what we want, they still are in a position to still say no and still not implement those things. So I would like to participate going forward in making sure that I personally can contribute to being one of the people who gives back power to the chief. And the reason I say so individually is this. I live in a village. I see how modernization is changing the village. I am an African. I love Africa. I love our customs, our traditions. I love the way we govern our people. I love the fact that we have Ubuntu among us and the way in which our societies remain, even if we don't have security companies, we don't have many police, but they remain largely crime-free, they remain largely communal, and they remain largely governed by us, the people, in a sense that if anyone does anything wrong, the people in the community stand together and we are able to do something like that. So that is collective power, and that is slowly dying because politics are coming in and dividing us, and they are moving us away from the power that we held together when we were governed by the king, because kings are ruled by saying, then we participate, we engage, we come up with a solution, implement it into the community. Right now, some of the things that are happening in the community that are really disturbing for me. Number one is pollution. I can see how the community is not able to control the issue of pollution. People are dumping everywhere, Maopeng, Dinukeng. As an environmentalist myself, I don't appreciate seeing what I'm saying, but that's because the people are not governing themselves. There's no law that comes from the chief that says such and such shall not happen. They simply just ignore the government or the so-called politicians who say, hey, there's a law that says you must not dump. So the people are not standing up together to deal with this issue. Secondly, issue of the pub. If we allow the pub to develop as much as they have, to have as many pubs in the community, we are going to see our culture begins to change, to become that of alcoholics, which means we are going to lose our morals, our children are not going to have a vision of the future, and the community is going to collapse going forward. And you see, the government allows this because anyone can have a license, or even some people don't even have anything done to them, even if they don't have a license. They simply operate and make noise all throughout the night and create chaos in the community. When we, the people, come together and identify a problem, we then come together with the chief to talk about the problem. We collectively can solve these problems without the involvement of the government. So really, I would like the power to come back to the chief so that we can govern ourselves as the people and we can iron out the issues that are affecting us individually in every community.
Thank you very much. And Naysayer would say you would still need, because the kings and the queens are diverse, they would still need, in terms of governing South Africa, they would still need some sort of a contralesa or some sort of a grouping where they jointly share their issues, they vote, if ever it's voting, and they convince each other, and then they move from that. Someone would say people will fly in and escort the chiefs there. In a way, they'll be bribing the chief. I know kings are not bribed. Kings are, you are paying respect when you give a king something. But because of that system, you would find some conglomerates from some multinational having, a lot of kings in their pocket, telling them what to do. You understand? And that will inevitably just bring us back. So we can't have a cabinet of kings because those kings are themselves going to be bribed into a decision. But that's just me as I listen to naysayers. Toneng, we wanted it to be a short one, and we still hope you'll come back to the studio and discuss further. What do you think is going to happen besides the fact that you said this GNU is going to collapse? What do you think is going to happen with MK? How is MK going to traverse this new political landscape that's been paved with a GNU and other black parties standing outside?
Look, individually, I don't look towards Parliament as a solution to anything. I think that just simply upholds the current constitution, which is Roman Dutch. And as long as we're still discussing things in Roman Dutch sense, then we are not talking African solutions. So I don't look towards, but that's me individual. I don't look towards this Parliament as a solution towards what we need as a people. I look at Burkina Faso, I look at Niger, I look at the other country next to them, I forgot the name, and I see how, just complete takeover of power is able to transform a nation, is able to bring people together. That president is no longer bound by disagreements with America and AGOA and the financial institutions. They simply implement decisions that are with and for the people. I look at that Ibrahim Traore. He's doing everything without the fear of markets. As long as we still talk markets and we still talk Robin Dutch law and we still talk about this constitution, we are wasting our time. I think the best strategy the MK has is for this thing, the election to be nullified so that we can go back and change it. Because I understand that we may not have a coup as other countries have had. But at least if we can expose the system and force them to at least have some form of integrity in the system with the re-election, if it so happens, I believe that if all means fail, we might get to a point where we are just like Niger or Burkina Faso. Something like that would have to happen. As you can see, it's already happening in Kenya. The people, regardless of whether the president comes on X and says, let's have a debate, they still say, we want you gone. They're still organizing. They're still saying, let's go back to the streets. I think in South Africa, there will be a time where if all means fail, if the electoral thing fails and we don't have a re-election, or maybe the elections still are compromised, or if Parliament also falls apart, I think at some point South Africa is going to head in the same direction where Kenya is, where Burkina Faso is, where Niger is, simply because we, the people, are getting tired of liars and the political establishment that does not serve the people of this country.
Ntoneng Dinala, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, sir.
Eitada. Guys, that's it from Ntoneng Dinala. Tell me what you think. What do you think about him? His hopes of the country going this direction that they've chosen. They've chosen a direction where they are going to please the markets. They are going to obey the Roman Dutch law. They are going, so the status quo doesn't change, even though ANC and EFF and MK as the big three strong parties, or that tell us they represent the black interest, they have 66% of the vote combined. They still do not think they will make a government. And people have said, if DA and Freedom Front Plus, which are white parties, if they had had 51%, they would not ask themselves, who are we going into coalition with? They would not even ask. It will just be automatic. Why can't, with our 66% of African people, have a government without even questioning? I agree, the thing that we do for Africans. The answer is simple. The reason we're not doing it is because these guys are actually not running this government for us. They are told what to do. Machine politically incorrect. Thank you. Tell us on the comments line what is it that you think. Especially dwell more on what Ntoneng has said. Replace democracy with kingship, with the king's rules. I don't know how that is going to be possible. I mean, we need a new. I mean, people have reported my channel, for example, saying I'm instigating things. When I repeat what you guys have said, if I tell you now that the only way for these guys to bring in these new kings to rule and replace democracy is if there's a reset button on this country, meaning we have to restart the country and start afresh. But as the status quo is, it's virtually impossible. And for us to go to war, you know how many years it will recover? It may take us 50 years to 100 years to recover from a war. Machine politically correct. This is the last goodbye. Thank you.